All right, let's go ahead and get started. I want to start off by saying thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules and joining us today. I know it's a hectic time for most, especially right now. My name is Jess, and I'm the marketing manager here at Index.io. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, just place them into the chat window and we'll answer them at the end. We'll also be recording this, and a link to the recording will be included in the follow-up email. So I'm sure it's no secret to any of you that the legal world is facing a boatload of challenges with electronic discovery. Challenges like data accessibility, scalability, management, and overwhelming costs. And these challenges are the exact reason Index.io was created. We took the latest technologies and made the most comprehensive e-discovery tool in the industry. So what's so special about us? Well, Index.io is a true do-it-yourself intuitive platform, meaning you can get up and running in minutes without ever talking to a sales rep or even utilizing a project manager. We also cut traditional processing times from days to minutes with our auto scale technology. Need to fire up Index.io on the go? No problem. We offer a free mobile iPad app that is easy, intuitive, and secure. You can literally review, code, redact, and organize your e-discovery documents no matter where you are. Index.io is also the only e-discovery solution that provides a daily hosting model. So what does this mean? Well, it means you have more predictable billing, easier project management, and no minimum hosting charges. There are also no long-term restricting contracts, no licensing fees, no user fees, and no minimums per month. And now for the main event. Austin, our support representative here at Index.io, is going to lead the compression formats discussion for you today. Austin?
All right, thanks for that intro, Jess, and thanks to everybody joining us today. Give me just a sec while I get my screen shared with you here. As Jess mentioned, today we're going to be doing a talk about file compression and kind of what the different types are, what different formats you might run into, and how those all interact with Index.io. So to start off, let's take a basic look at how does file compression work. And the way that it works when you create a zip file is it's going to take repeated values that it finds in your data, and it's going to try to represent those with something that takes less memory to keep track of. It's kind of like math when you assign like a variable to x, and you know that that represents something else. So let's take a look at a binary example here. If you have a whole bunch of ones and zeros, this top string, this is what your computer's actually going to have to track if they want to work with it. But you can make that a little shorter if you say, okay, so we have 6 ones in a row, 6 zeros, 3 ones, and so on. And that shrinks it down a little bit. So that's the basic idea behind compression, is we're just representing things in a way that makes them a little bit smaller. And we have another text example here. So if we take index.io and we represent that with this little I symbol, then we can do this whole sentence here as just I-2, I-3. It makes it much, much smaller. It's a lot less for your computer to keep track of inside that compressed file. But of course, once you do need to actually work with it, you have to extract that, unzip it, and turn it back into the original format. And this is, of course, a very basic math example. The actual compression can get pretty complex, but that's as much math as I'll throw at you. So let's take a look at the different standards that you might see in compression formats. The most common, of course, is zip files. Pretty much any computer can work with these out of the box. They've got tools to compress or to open up zip files so you can work with them. Some others you might see are Rar files. This is a proprietary format, which means they don't really publish exactly how it works. They kind of keep that as like a trade secret, but there are a number of programs that can open them, and only the original program that can actually create these Rar files. But you may run into these, and we'll explore those a little bit as well. And then the last one is 7-zip. This is a great format. It's open source. All the math behind it is publicly available. You can go in and see how all the algorithms work and what exactly it's doing. But 7-zip files, of course, require a special program. Most computers aren't going to be able to work with those right out of the box. So let's take a look at zip files. These are going to have fast compression and a pretty low CPU requirement, which means your computer's not going to be working really hard while it makes the zip file, and it's going to create the zip file pretty quickly. This is why it's pretty much the standard. All operating systems can work with them. And our recommended utility for working with these is, believe it or not, 7-zip. They have great zip file support. You can change a couple of different settings on your compression here. And it just makes it really easy compared to a lot of the built-in utilities that you might see on your computer. And these zip files are supported by Index.io. We can take zip files, you can upload them, we'll extract them, pull the files out, and then you can work with them in the system from there. So the next one up here is RAR files. These are going to build a little bit slower when you tell your computer to create a RAR file. But the end result is that they get much, much smaller. They're going to end up a lot more compressed. So if file size is important to you, RAR files can be a good option. They also support error recovery. And what that means is that, every once in a while, someone will send me a zip file and it can't extract, it won't open, it's got some bad data in there. Maybe it was transferred between too many computers and stuff was corrupt along the way. But RAR files are nice in that they can actually recover from that. They've got some stuff built in to where if they find a bad file or some bad data in the middle of it, they can skip over that or even sometimes just work through it and get you the file anyway. That's another option. It's our RAR files here. These do require a third-party program to be installed. And the one we recommend for that is WinRAR. This is the original program that actually designed the format. So it's the only one out there that's going to actually be able to create RAR files if you need to work with them. And the cool thing about this utility is it's usually a paid utility, but they do have a free trial version, and the trial never actually expires. At the end of your free period, it's going to give you a pop-up saying, hey, we'd appreciate it if you buy it, and if you really like the tool, you want to support the developers, certainly send them some money, but you can use the free trial version pretty much indefinitely. So that's a great utility, and we do support RAR files as well. You can put those up into index.io, and we'll extract those same as a zip and give you all the files, let you work with the contents. There's also a subset of RAR files that you might run into that are called partial RAR files. So you'll see in this screenshot, if you ever see a bunch of files that have this extension .part1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is something special specific to RAR files that they can do, and they'll split an archive into multiple parts here. This can be helpful if you're uploading over like a slow connection, or maybe you keep having disconnection issues, something like that. Because rather than restart the entire upload and have to do all, a couple gigabytes of it, you can just resume whichever part you'd happen to make it to. The downside of that is that if you're missing one of these parts, the whole thing is broken. You're not going to be able to work with it at all. So it's really a little bit more finicky, but it can be right in certain situations. Index.io does not support partial RAR files. So if you end up with this kind of data and you need to work with it, you'll have to extract it locally first and turn it into like a zip file that you can then upload to us instead. We can't take all of these individual parts and recreate them in our system. That's got to be done in advance. And that brings us to the next set here, the 7-zip files. These are going to build the file similar to zip files, but it's going to be even better compression than RAR files. So you'll get the smallest possible file if you're using 7-zip. The trade-off is that it's pretty CPU intensive, so you're going to probably hear your computer's fans spin up if it's a little bit older. Older computers might struggle a little bit. And it's going to be working a little bit harder to do it, but they do come out a lot better than some of these other formats. These also require a third-party program, and of course we recommend 7-zip, the original utility that creates these files. Downside of this is that index.io does not support 7-zip files, so even though it's a better compression ratio, we just can't handle those at the moment. So zip files are really what we recommend, or RAR files if you've already got them. So which one of these is the best? We've looked at some options here, and it really depends what you're using them for. For general use, and if you're trying to put them into index.io, zip files are going to be the best. They're universal. Almost every computer can handle them out of the box. They're just really easy to work with. If you're doing backups or you need to store data for a longer period of time, RAR files can be great because they have that error handling. So you don't necessarily have to, after you create the archive, unzip it, make sure that it still works, transfer it to something else, make sure it still works there. You can kind of rely on the fact that it'll recover if it ever does get corrupt and has some issues. So backups are great to use with RAR files. And if file size is really your biggest issue, maybe you're loading these onto a hard drive and you've got limited space, or maybe it's a very small thumb drive you got to fit stuff onto, or you just know you're going to have a ton of data and you want it as small as possible, 7-zip is going to be the best to work with there. So our best all-in-one utility, if you haven't guessed yet, is 7-zip. I really like this program. It can compress and extract zip and 7-zip files. It'll extract RAR files even though they won't actually make it. It is free and it's a Windows-only utility. It even supports a few other less common compression formats that you don't see very often. Some of these like bzip, gzip, tar that you may run into at some point. If you ever do, 7-zip will handle them no problem. And if you are a Mac user, there's another utility here called the Unarchiver. This is what I'd recommend. This is what I use. We're a Mac shop, so this is how I handle most of my compression and archives. And this is going to be pretty much the same as 7-zip, except it works on Mac. It's going to do zip, 7-zip, RAR, tar, even more files, and it's free. So a great utility to have in your toolbox there. And that is our presentation on compression methods. Jess, if we had any questions come in, let's take a look and see.
I haven't seen anything yet.
We'll give everybody a couple minutes to ask some questions if they want. If you do have any questions about our webinar or using index.io, you can always reach out to support@index.io, that address right there. We're happy to answer questions, jump on and do free trainings, get you up and running in the system, or assist however we can. I'm not seeing any questions come in, so I guess we will wrap up there, and hopefully we'll see you guys at our next webinar. Thanks, everyone.